Okay, so I got a download about music. And you guys know how I talk about how God always speaks to me through music. And I always put a bunch of songs up, and I have always listened to music my entire life. And I've always really listened to the lyrics, and I've realized now that I'm on a spiritual path, and God's told me all about music, and I've had so many songs like synchronistically line up to my life in like such weird red stringy ways, and it's just the most beautiful thing because that music means so much to me. And that actually is a big thing in my family. My dad plays organ and piano, and so music has always kind of been like a bigger part of my life. And God told me recently music is meditation, because I don't sit and I don't like and I don't meditate or do any of that shit. Like that shit like really actually pisses me off. I really struggle with that, which I know one day I'll be like, I'll get there with meditation, but I like really don't like it at all. And I do really genuinely feel like it would help my lungs, but like it's just not my thing. But God told me that music is meditation. Anything that brings you into the present moment is meditation, which I thought was really interesting because that's like basically how I meditate. Like I listen to the lyrics, and it does totally draw me into the present moment because I'm paying attention to the lyrics. And then God also was telling me how music helps you time travel. And that's why it like speaks directly to the soul. That's why so many people love music. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've always loved concerts. I've always gone to live music. I love, so many different types of music as well. Like I've loved so many different genres. I can listen and hop to one song to another because each one takes me to a place in time in my life, and it takes me like right there, and it helps me like time travel. Like it helps me not only be present, but it helps me like go back in time and remember the times that like when I was listening, like what era of my life I was in when I was listening to that and what I was thinking at the time. And then it helps me travel into the future because a lot of the music I listen to, it's very relevant to like a lot of like hope, or or I listen to a lot of like emo stuff that like really gets me into my feelings. And so it's helped me really process my feelings as well in like a very healthy way, because I wasn't able to process it with my family ever because I had to like really mask and pretend and do all of that stuff, which I still do to this day. And I've had to do this actually around a lot of people. And so through music, I was always able to at least process those emotions in kind of like a silent way because I couldn't really say anything. Obviously, I got Baker acted because I had like a little like, emotional moment. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense now. So I'm like, oh, yeah, God, this totally makes sense. It's like, yeah, so like, that's how you process things, because you always had to be like more quiet, and you always had to be like more in your own reality in order to, and you had to get it out some way. So I was always listening to like literally there's this song I think about all the time, and it's the song is, I think it's This Is War by Smile Empty Soul. And I was listening to that song in 6th grade, and it's all about like the propaganda of the fucking Matrix, basically. And like most girls my age were listening to like Taylor Swift or things like that at that age. And don't get me wrong, I was listening to that. I listened to Taylor Swift. I love Teardrops on my guitar, I will say. Again, I mention a lot about Taylor Swift because God tells me it's very strategic, because a lot of people are really attached to her, and it's going to be hard when the Matrix goes down, he says, with her. And so, he really wants me to just have a lot about her on my channel and stuff, so we can eventually like see her in a dualistic mindset. So I think that's really interesting. So if you hear me always mentioning Taylor Swift, like I have this like strange obsession with her. Which I kind of do because I feel she's autistic. So I had this like pull towards her as well. I don't, again, listen to a lot of her music, but I feel a strange draw to the woman in a strange way, because I know if she just stops masking and like lets go of her parents, she'll be a totally different person, kind of a thing. And obviously the entire industry and the Matrix and all that stuff, but there's something weird going on with her mom and her. They got a weird, anyway, I psychoanalyze everything because this is like my spiritual gifts and stuff. And so I love that too, because I was always into like Criminal Minds and all this stuff. And I'm like, all my favorite things are literally culminating within me. And I feel like that's going to be like a lot of us light workers. All of our favorite things are going to culminate within us. And we're going to use all the things that like, we loved. Music, movies, psychoanalysis for me, the Bible, Jesus, God, all my heroes, Martin Luther King Jr., all this stuff. It's just like, it's crazy, crazy stuff that's going on. So anyway, all of those things actually help you time travel, like when you're watching movies too. Or you're listening to speeches of Martin Luther King Jr. Like, you go back into that time and you realize, like, what he was doing at that time was just profound. And why, again, he was, like, taken out and all that stuff. And I've been told all those taken out moments, you know, were timeline interference in the football game that we're in right now. I've talked about this on my channel. And all of those. JFK, there was a ton of people. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was extremely intelligent. I've read some of her interviews, and you can tell that she was extremely intelligent for the time that she was at. Like, I read this article about how she was talking about how as long as, like, sex is consensual, it's, like, the most beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things we can experience in this world. And so you're like, dude, you were, like, what, 30 years old in the 60s talking about, like, sex, which wasn't talked about, obviously, because people are super religious and prude and still are. I have so much prudeness that I have to deconstruct from my upbringing, you know? I've always been dualistic about that. I've always been, like, kind of sexual, but also, like, not. Very strange. Very strange. Anyway, I think a lot of women are like that. Genuinely. There's, like, a lot of stuff we have to deconstruct around that. And I think Marilyn Monroe could have really helped us out, because she was like, I'm like, how the hell did you think about that at that time? Like, so she must have had a lot of experiences where she didn't have consensual schmacks, or, like, you know, like, people, again, made people feel weird about talking about it, you know, as a woman, but then we were also expected to do it as wives. So it was like this weird thing, you know, it's just strange, you know, weird behavior. And that's, like, the disconnection from God. So you can see all these different ways that, like, you know, like, God chose to disconnect from itself through everybody in this dissension period. And that's kind of like what time traveling does as well. But then also where you can see fractals of God, that he inserted himself into people like Marilyn Monroe, like Martin Luther King Jr., like all the people that we really love and admire, Jesus. That shit, because Princess Diana, you know, I could go on and on and on about so many beautiful, amazing people, that were Christ coded, sent his, like, sons and daughters in, you know, that kind of thing. And now he's got a bunch, a whole fuck ton. So, like, that's why this is, like, another piece of proof that this is absolutely shifting, because there's so many people here who have all that shit now, all those qualities, and you're like, there is nothing they can do. They are screwed. And then I get psychic downloads that are, like, extra screwed. They're extra screwed. So I'm super stoked about that. And I love music. And I love movies. And I love all the seeded transmissions. And, you know, there is magic in your realities when you can find it. And, you know, if you're having a hard time right now, music is a beautiful way to escape and time travel for a little bit, you know, or movies, or, you know, that's healthier ways to do it. Because other people escape. I used to escape through drugs and food and schmacks and alcohol and all sorts of stuff to escape my reality. And now I do it through magic and healing my body and eating healthy and changing my mind and changing my perspective and enjoying my life as much as I can, and going out in nature, going to the beach and sitting with myself and processing my pain, sitting with the darkness of my soul. I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. Which is just the programming that I had to do out of survival. I have a lot of dark programming because I had to survive my reality some way, somehow. And the only way that my brain thought to do that, the way that God created it to do that, was by having extremely dark thoughts. Because logically, then I could always feel safe within my body, because I knew that then I could just leave. You know, like, if it really got too bad, I could just leave. Is basically my logic my entire life. And so unfortunately, though, if you've done that your whole life, you do have to undo that, and you do have to sit with old stuff, and you have to process your pain, and you have to, like, kind of see where it comes from, and you have to be nice to it, and also just get it out. Also, you just got to get it out. You have to get it out, purge, all those. That's what we're all going to be doing, healing and stuff. So, and this is more towards the end of it, I'm realizing too, because I've been on this healing journey for since I was 13, which the first time I ever went to therapy was, like, the first time I had an ego death where my identity was, like, shattered. And then ever since then, it's never stopped. So that's why I'm a little tired. And a lot of us light workers, the same thing has happened. We had ego deaths very early on because God had to get us going, because we had to be ready for this time right now. I've talked about that too. He says he's sorry. So anyway, music is beautiful, and this time is, and God is too. And also, it can be hard. So